The cross-draw gun, the forgotten weapon that changed the way soldiers fought. There's a moment every soldier knows, the moment when the world shrinks to nothing but instinct. When seconds stretch thin, and the only thing that matters is whether your hand reaches steel before your enemy does. For most, that draw comes from the hip. Straightforward, predictable, the way textbooks teach it. But hidden in the margins of military history lies a technique that broke the rules. A method whispered among cavalrymen, frontier scouts, trench fighters, tank crews, pilots, and gunfighters who lived on the edge of chaos. The cross draw. A weapon holstered on the opposite side of the body, drawn by reaching across the chest. Misunderstood, criticized, loved, hated, and yet, decade after decade, it refuses to die. Today, we're uncovering the real story. From its rise in the American West to its battlefield role in two world wars, Vietnam, modern policing, and elite military units who still use it today. This is the forgotten tale of the cross-draw gun and the men who trusted it with their lives. If you think you know sidearms, this story is about to change everything. Chapter 1. Born in the Saddle. The cross-draw didn't begin on a battlefield. It began on a horse. 19th century American cavalry troopers rode into combat with sabers, rifles, and bulky revolvers. But mounted combat had a problem. A holster on the dominant side hip was nearly useless while seated. The weapon's grip pointed backward, awkward to reach, and often trapped against the saddle. The solution was simple but revolutionary. Soldiers began placing their revolvers on the opposite side of their dominant hand, angled forward. From horseback, this wasn't just convenient. It was fast, reliable, natural. And on the frontier, this positioning spread beyond the military. Scouts, lawmen, and outlaws who rode long distances found the cross draw perfect for drawing while seated, drawing with heavy clothing, avoiding interference from a rifle slung on the strong side, defending against surprise attacks during travel. It wasn't a trick. It was survival. But as firearms evolved, the cross draw wasn't ready to fade. Instead, it adapted. Chapter 2. The Gunfighter's Advantage. When the West transformed into a battleground of saloons, stagecoaches, and dusty standoffs, the cross draw became a signature of many gunfighters. Contrary to Hollywood myths, not all duels were face-to-face. Most were sudden ambushes, blindsided disputes, or close-quarters fights after long hours seated. Gunfighters preferred the cross draw for three key reasons. Concealment. A cross-draw holster sits comfortably under a coat or vest without printing. Seated access. Whether at a bar, in a coach, or on horseback, the gun remains accessible. Natural body mechanics. Reaching across the body aligns the arm with the target in a smoother motion. Some of history's fastest guns, including railroad guards, express agents, and saloon lawmen, carried their revolvers cross-draw. The method wasn't glamorous. It was practical. But the technique faced its first major shift when war came to Europe. Chapter 3. World War I and the Trench Fighters. World War I redefined warfare. Mud, trenches, confined tunnels, and brutal close-quarters encounters. Officers and trench raiding teams often carried pistols as their primary weapon. The confined space made strong side hip holsters difficult to draw from while crouching or navigating tight dugouts. This is where the cross-draw resurfaced. Many officers began wearing their sidearms in a cross-draw configuration for immediate access during trench breaches, ladder climbs, or hand-to-hand engagements. The technique allowed quicker access while crouched, less interference with web gear, smoother draws in confined spaces, a natural presentation in tight angles. The cross-draw wasn't a relic. It was proving itself again in the worst places on Earth. But by World War II, it took on an entirely new identity. Chapter 4. World War II. Pilots, tank crews, and commandos. If World War I birthed the modern soldier, World War II birthed the specialist. Tank crews, pilots, and vehicle operators discovered a truth cavalry troopers already knew. Sitting destroys the strong side draw. A pilot strapped into a cockpit or a tank crewman surrounded by metal walls had only one reliable quick-access option: a cross-draw holster strapped to the chest or angled on the belt. This configuration allowed them to draw without removing harnesses, defend against cockpit intrusions, access a weapon while wounded on the right side, draw from inside cramped armored vehicles. Even elite commando units adopted variations of cross-draw rigs for stealth and quick access under jackets. The technique survived not because it was fashionable, but because it worked. Chapter 5. The critics arrive. But by the mid-20th century, firearms training began standardizing. Police academies and military instructors prioritized strong-side hip holsters for retention, safety, and distance from the opponent's grabbing hand. The cross-draw was criticized for increased exposure to gun grabs, sweeping the muzzle across the body, slower performance when standing relaxed, inconsistency under stress without training. Despite this, certain communities refused to give it up. Truck drivers, undercover officers, detectives, marshals, people who spent more time seated, driving, or working in confined spaces than standing tall in formation. The cross-draw became a niche, but not an outdated one. We're only halfway through the story and the surprising part is still coming. If you're enjoying this deep dive into military and weapons history, take a moment to like and share. It helps keep documentaries like this alive and pushes this episode out to more history fans. Now, let's continue. Chapter 6. Vietnam and the Rise of Specialized Holsters. Vietnam was a war of extremes: dense jungles, sudden ambushes, and helicopter warfare. Aircraft crews, armored units, long-range recon teams, and even some officers adopted chest rigs, shoulder rigs, and cross-draw setups that allowed instant access while carrying heavy gear. The M1911 remained the sidearm of choice, and its weight made a chest-mounted cross-draw preferable for many soldiers. Special forces experimented with rigs that blended cross-draw accessibility with retention straps, hybrids designed for fast movement and rough terrain. The technique persisted not because it was outdated, but because the battlefield demanded it. Chapter 7. Modern Era: Law Enforcement and Civilian Applications. Today, the cross-draw lives on, though differently than before. Undercover law enforcement officers still favor cross-draw holsters for deep concealment and quick-seated access. Drivers, motorcyclists, pilots, medical professionals, and people with physical limitations often choose the cross-draw for comfort and consistency. Even in competitive shooting, some niche categories allow or experiment with cross-draw techniques. Modern holsters, with retention locks, muzzle shields, and angled designs, have made the method safer than its early frontier ancestors ever imagined. The cross-draw never vanished. It evolved. Chapter 8. Why the cross-draw won't die. Its longevity comes down to a simple truth. Not all environments favor the strong side draw. The cross-draw thrives when mobility is limited. Gear obstructs the dominant side. The user spends hours seated. Fast, instinctive chest-level access is needed. Drawing under concealment is critical. The technique isn't better, and it's not worse. It's situational, purpose-built, and in the right hands, exceptionally effective. Chapter 9. A cultural icon. Beyond function, the cross-draw became a cultural symbol. Western gunfighters, sheriffs, Army scouts, World War pilots, Vietnam helicopter crews, undercover detectives. Its visual profile appears in films, comics, reenactments, and military art around the world. People recognize it instantly: the hand sweeping across the body, the revolver or sidearm revealed in a clean arc. The cross-draw became more than a method. It became a silhouette of history. Chapter 10. The Final Analysis. After more than 150 years of combat, policing, and frontier use, the cross-draw refuses to disappear. Why? Because environments change, equipment changes, combat changes. But human instinct, reaching across the body in a protective, natural motion, doesn't change. And as long as there are people who work in cramped spaces, who travel long distances, who carry heavy gear, or who need a hidden yet accessible sidearm, the cross draw will always have a place on the battlefield, the street, and the frontier of human survival. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the forgotten history of the cross draw gun, consider subscribing for more long-form military and weapons documentaries. Leave a like, drop a comment with the weapon or technique you want covered next, and share this episode with someone who loves military history. Thanks for watching. And until the next documentary, stay curious, stay sharp, and keep exploring the stories that shaped our world.